The recent kidnapping case in Cleveland has focused new attention on domestic abuse. The federal government calls it a pervasive problem that frequently goes undetected.
I was a prisoner in my own home.
Why didn't you just open the door and walk out?
My door was locked from the outside. I couldn't leave the house.
And if you violated the terms of how you were supposed to be living?
It would get very, very aggressive and very physical.
Although domestic abuse may not be the most discussed issue in our everyday life, it's still very much an issue in the lives of many all around the United States, and Minnesota is no exception. Domestic abuse, by definition, is the physical, sexual, psychological, or emotional abuse of one intimate partner to the other in order to hold power and control over them. To put the issue into perspective, it is estimated that around every 20 seconds a woman is physically or sexually abused. Just in Minnesota alone, it is estimated that 1 death per week is caused due to some sort of domestic abuse, and that 1 in 3 women in Minnesota is homeless, at least in part due to domestic abuse. In an effort to learn more about what domestic abuse consists of and what is being done to help prevent and spread awareness of it, I visited Women's Advocates, an organization and shelter based around ending the violence in the lives of women, children, and families, and was able to speak to a couple of their members.
So it starts with a phone call. We have a 24-hour crisis line that people can call at any time of the day and they'll reach an advocate. And if they're looking for shelter space, then we would ask them a few questions about why and what they're looking for and what do they need right now. If it's shelter space and we have that available and we're able to bring them into the shelter, fantastic. Oftentimes we run into the shelter is full and we don't have anywhere for that family to go. So we're able to try and connect them to other shelters so that they can find somewhere else that might be safe for them. They come to the shelter, then they're connecting up with an advocate and they're working on lots of different goals so that they can gain that stability and be safe in the community after they're done with their time here. So that might be employment, that might be getting an order for protection, and it could be looking for housing and getting their children set up in school again. But a lot of what we do, in addition to those pieces, is the support. And so whether that's through the support group here, or a meeting with our therapist, or just that one-on-one time to be able to talk about their experience, can be really, really helpful. I think a lot of times the women come with their own ideas of what it means to have experienced domestic violence, and they come in thinking that they're a bad mom, or they can't take care of themselves, or they can't take care of their partner, or whatever that looks like. And they get these messages from all over the place, and the biggest message is that it's their fault. And so there's a lot of shame, and they tend to think, if I only would have done something different, it wouldn't have happened this way. Or, even something as small as if I would have had dinner done on time, or, if I could only find a job, or if I could only do something, then I would be in a better place and this wouldn't have happened to me. And so that's what a lot of these women really feel, and it seems so basic, but it's really, really built into because part of what domestic violence is that emotional violence as well. So on top of them feeling that way, the abuser is reinforcing that and saying, you're not good at these things, and I know you're never going to amount to anything, and whatever else they're saying to these women. So that's really reinforced by that, and they lack a lot of the courage and the confidence to be able to get away from that experience.
I want people to know that it's okay to talk about this issue. Yeah, it happens in your home and it's behind closed doors, but when you're not sharing what's happening, you're falling into that trap.
Domestic violence comes from a place of power and control. It's not about what the other person did, or they didn't pick the kids up on time or whatever. It's about power and control. So that abuser has something going on inside of them that says that they need to gain and maintain power and control over another person. So from there, it kind of branches out. Could start with the emotional abuse. And really kind of breaking down the person's self-esteem and confidence, and then start controlling her money or telling her what to wear and who she can talk to and things like that, and build out, and then eventually lead to that physical violence. But there are some folks that we've definitely seen who have been abusive from the get-go. So it kind of depends.
What would be your advice to women, or in this case teenagers, because they're going to be the ones seeing this, who could currently be in an abusive relationship and they might be afraid to speak out? What would be your advice?
The biggest advice is, the biggest thing that I can say is that it's not your fault. It's not your fault no matter what. Even if maybe you did talk to this other person, or you did send a text to your old boyfriend or something like that, that never justifies physical violence or emotional violence or anything like that. that doesn't give anyone the right to hurt you in any way. So always know that piece, and that there's always people to listen. You're not the only one going through this. There are many other people that are going through something very similar, and they can help you through some of these things.
It affects everyone. It doesn't just affect the person who's experiencing violence. It affects their sisters, their brothers, the whole community. It's a public health issue. It's an issue that even if you personally are not experiencing it, you know someone who is. So as a community, it's our job to notice that something's happening and then do what we can to solve that problem.
And how about, for a little twist on that question, for others who may know somebody who's in an abusive relationship and might not know whether to interfere or not, what exactly do you look out for, and how do you determine if it's appropriate to interfere?
So the biggest thing in deciding whether or not to reach out or whatever, if you're going to intervene or anything like that, is your own safety. A lot of times when people are going through a violent relationship, they may not be sharing certain things with you because they are afraid. They're afraid that if they reach out and talk to a friend or family member, they're going to get hurt. They feel that their abuser is going to follow through on all those threats that they've given them. So the biggest piece is to think about safety, and whether that's your own safety or the safety of the people that are in that relationship, it's just really important.
We need to be open to talking to other people and being okay with hearing from them that they're going through something difficult, and just be their support. You don't have to have the answers. You don't have to go in and save them. If there is something happening physically, it is not your job to go in and stop that, because then you're putting yourself at risk. But it is your job to say, there's something happening here and I need to do whatever I can to help.
Always be ready to listen to someone who might be in a violent relationship. And you can ask that question, maybe when you're alone with someone, and say, do you feel safe here? I've done it before for people in my own life, and it's a really nice way to connect with that person and let them know that you're there to be a support to them. We know that on average it takes, I believe, 7 to 12 times before someone leaves an abusive relationship for good. And oftentimes the pieces of the relationship that you see or that you've heard before, they might be really bad, but also keep in mind that that person might not have shared everything. So there's a lot of things that go on in that relationship that she might not have told you.
You said it takes 7 to 12? Why does it take that long?
For so many reasons. For so many barriers to leaving an abusive relationship. In addition, just not believing you can do it. Your self-esteem and your confidence have been just eaten alive by this person, and they're telling you for a long time that you're not worth it. And so eventually you start to believe that, and you start to believe that you can't make any changes to your life. And at some point, some people start to wonder, should I even bother? It can be really, really terrifying to reach out and kind of share something that's so deeply personal with a stranger or with a friend or a coworker or mom or whoever that might be. It's a huge step, and it takes a lot of courage to do that.
But I just love seeing the women and the children come in and seeing how they're transformed while they're here.
The resiliency of the families is astounding. I mean, to come from a place where you don't believe you're worth anything and to have the courage to reach out and come to a shelter is a huge first step, and then to see them grow from there. Whether that's having a better relationship with their children, or being able to see a doctor for the first time in a long time, or getting housing or a job, or just making those steps to feeling more safe in who they are and more confident in who they are. It's amazing. And it's just, I feel so privileged to be just a small part of that journey.
But to be willing to open up and say, here it is, this is what's wrong, this is my issue, this is what I need help with. To be able to open up to someone like that and just lay it all out there, it's amazing. I would love to say that I'm able to do that. And I try it, but I've never been at the absolute worst point and had to turn to a stranger. And I think the fact that they're willing to do that and able to do that shows just how strong they are.